Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. From Mailroom to Corner Office, A Banker's Journey by Dr. R. Srinivasan. This is the cover page of the book. Today, that is 16 September 2025, I am sharing episode 22. The YouTube links of episode 1 to episode 21 are available in the description. Bank of India and IBA, Mumbai. This chapter is Challenging Times. Challenging Times. With due deference to the wishes of my readers, this is my unfortunate, unwanted, unexpected, uncalled for, unpleasant, and unforgettable experience in banking. Much as I would like to forget this part of my life, my official career history may not be complete without this addition. Hence, I have decided to put this on paper and pray that God may guide me to keep my balance and do not do or say anything to hurt others, even though they would have caused immeasurable agony to me and my family, and similarly others who were also unfortunately involved in this unfortunate episode. A small summary. My banking service commenced on March 1, 1949 as a matriculate clerk in National Bank of India, a British bank that has now lost its identity after it became a part of Standard Chartered Bank. On May 10, 1960, I moved on to Andhra Bank, which was a private sector bank which became nationalized in 1980. From August 4, 1971 to September 12, 1982, I was with New Bank of India, which was also a private sector bank that was also nationalized in 1980, to start their foreign exchange department, but my good luck took me to several notches up in the ladder and ultimately made me the chairman and managing director of New Bank of India on January 2, 1981. During this period with New Bank, I also became a graduate from Karnataka University and got my postgraduate admission to Meerut University. In September 1982, Government of India moved me to Allahabad Bank, Kolkata as CMD, and on June 24, 1987, I was further moved on to Bank of India, Mumbai as CMD. I retired from Bank of India on August 29, 1991, and 3 months after my superannuation under a special dispensation granted to me as an extension in service by the government. I was also holding the office of the chairman of Indian Banks Association, which office I demitted on retirement from active service. During my tenure as chairman of IBA, I created Bank Sports Board to nurture the huge talent available among the bank staff in every form of sport. During my stint with Bank of India, I enrolled myself for a doctoral degree with Mumbai University. My guide was Professor Dr. Gonesgi, who is now no more, and I received my doctorate in May 1992. I have already written many pages about myself and Bank of India. I had mentioned that Bank of India is one of the finest banks in India. In 1948, sitting at a branch of the bank in Madras to get a cash for a check I had tendered at the counter, I was dreaming of how lucky I would be to get a clerical post in that fine bank. God not only granted my wish, but gave me what I did not even dare to dream. He made me the CMD. I brought laurels to the bank and retired very honorably. No one, even if I had an enemy, would ever say that I was unfair or inept or corrupt person. There could be some who would say that I was unbending, strict, and perhaps in the view arrogant too, but I was always impartial. As stated, I retired on August 29, 1991. On February 19, 1994, the bank, based on their own internal inspection of branches and on the report of local monetary authorities, came to the conclusion that at one of the overseas branches of the bank, huge financial irregularities were found to have been committed. They zeroed in on the chief of the bank who masterminded the entire operation, kept the controlling officers and the higher authorities in the dark, gagged the subordinate officers at the branch, and in some cases made them recommend for his sanction various financial facilities that in normal course of business those officers would not have dared to do. Those subordinate officers were made to believe that the chief had strong support from head office and that therefore his dictates had to be simply obeyed. In the normal course of events, whenever the controlling office, be it the original, regional, or zonal, or head office, comes to know of any serious irregularity at a branch, the first thing expected to be done was to hold a departmental inquiry while keeping the suspected individuals under suspension. In this case, head office at the level of the chief vigilance officer holding the rank of a general manager is ordered to file a first information report with the country's criminal investigating agency, the Central Bureau of Investigations in Delhi. The well-established procedure and instructions given by the Chief Vigilance Commission, Delhi, under whom the Chief Vigilance Officer in each bank or other establishments functions, is that frauds involving large amounts are to be investigated by the CVO of the organization, who is generally on deputation from some other bank or similar establishment. His findings are to be placed before the CMD through the ED and along with their observations sent to the CVC for concurrence. It is only after obtaining the concurrence of the CVC further steps such as lodging FIR are taken. In this case, nowhere was it established that this procedure was followed. The FIR filled by the bank CVO with CBI squarely placed the responsibility for the irregularities committed at the said branch on the chief of that branch. The FIR listed about 8 accounts. The FIR named the suspect and did not even suggest any other officers even at the branch. The FIR was filed on February 19, 1994. My impression about such investigating agencies was and is that they grab opportunities to investigate frauds in banks because of the generous hospitality extended to the investigating officers by the banks. Very promptly, CBI deputed an officer of the rank of a deputy superintendent of police to attend to this matter. He took up the job in all earnestness and came to Bombay to set up his office on the 14th floor of the bank's head office. Thus began the saga. After I retired from Bank of India on August 29, 1991, I continued to live in the chairman's flat on the 12th floor of a wing of Sterling Apartments, Perra Road, Mumbai. The government permits retiring chief executives to continue living in the same residence for a maximum period of 3 months after stepping down from office. I decided to vacate the place by the end of September that year, as I had decided to go back to Hyderabad and settle down there. Knowing that I was planning to leave Bombay, which is now Mumbai, some offers came my way to join some corporates. There was a restriction from the government that any retiring government executive should not take up any full time employment without their specific approval. This was for a period of 2 years. It is called a cooling off period from the date of retirement. I therefore declined some offers, even though I was willing to be an advisor to anyone requiring my advice. The late R.P. Goenka, one of the prominent industrialists of the country, knew me from my days in Kolkata as CMD of Allahabad Bank. He came to my Sterling apartment flat one morning for breakfast with the purpose of asking me to take over as the advisor and then as chief of his group's financial services outfit after my imminent retirement from BOI. He was willing to provide me with living accommodation in South Bombay. I was not in the mood to accept his offer at that time, as I was living in the hope that Government of India would utilize my services suitably. This idea was floating in the air and made me believe as though I was going to get some assignment. I was approached by SR Group Chairman Sashi Rivaya to join his group as an advisor. I accepted the offer in principle but expressed my helplessness as I had no place to live in Mumbai. His office said that they would take care of it. By then, we had packed our belongings and they were to be moved out in a day by road. SR did not allow this to happen. They moved all of our luggage to a basement godown in the Nariman Point area and for a few days made me live out of my suitcase. Thereafter, they offered me an excellent apartment in Warren Road. This was in the building of Cadbury and it was a very prominent location and a prestigious place to live. The company also provided me with a new car for my use. I started attending SR office, but for almost a month and a half I did not have any work to do. I had to spend my time there reading newspapers such as the Economic Times. I soon got fed up. One day in the afternoon, I walked into the office of Ravi Ruya, a younger brother of Sashi. The name of their group was called SR, taking the initials of the two brothers, Sashi and Ravi, and told him that I would not be in their office from the following day as I did not have any work to do. He tried all his charm to make me change my decision, but I stuck to it. I handed over the key to the car they had provided. He asked me not to be in such a hurry and that I could still use the car if I wanted. I refused and persuaded him to accept the keys, but I requested him to please allow me to continue to stay in the Cadbury's building for some more time, by which I would find my way out. He magnanimously accepted. SR had taken the flat on a 3-year lease. Ravi Duya asked me to write my own check for compensation for the period I was with SR Group. I told him that I hardly did any work and so I would not take even 1 rupee as compensation. Within such a short time, another industrialist came and offered me to take over the unexpired portion of the lease of SR and asked me to become their advisor. By that time, the cooling off period stipulated by government was over, and so I became a director in two of that group's companies. One was a finance business, and other a tea producing and exporting concern. In view of this arrangement, I continued to live in the Cadbury Bonneville apartments on the sixth floor. One morning in the month of March 1994, there was a knock on the door of our flat and I went and answered it. There stood a person claiming to be from CBI with a few more persons waiting to enter my flat, wanting to enter my flat and do a search of the premises. It was about 8 a.m. My wife and I had not even finished our morning routine, nor had our breakfast. At that moment, when I heard the man saying that he was from CBI, I think the ground under my feet was crumbling and I lost all my senses. I did not know what to do or what to say. I did not ask him what was the cause of his visit, whether he had the authority to enter my house, or ask him to prove his identity, etc. I simply froze and remained speechless for the next 2 hours. I was shocked beyond words. He and his whole team stayed at my house till very late in the evening. They did not have any compunction to ask for tea or coffee at intervals and something to eat too. We were at our wits' end. I did not even know whether I could call anyone on the phone. My eldest son was living in Altamount Road, which is within a few minutes' drive from Cadbury, but my brain stopped functioning and I did not even call him on the phone. The entire house was ransacked and everything was strewn on the floor. The leader of the team prepared a panchnama at the end of the day, took possession of every receipt for a small amount, counted the cash left in the house, noted the bank account numbers, and asked me not to operate the accounts until permitted. He then sealed our bank locker without either opening it or taking an inventory of the things therein. They did not even find a small bit of paper connected to Bank of India. They did find a few bottles of whiskey. The investigating officer asked me why I had kept these bottles when I was known to be a teetotaler and whether I had license to keep them at home. I told him that I was not aware that I should have a license and that they were received from friends on the occasion of Diwali or New Year after my retirement and I did not know how to dispose them. They took possession of them and sent them to Gamdevi police station. They also took me there at 9 p.m. Luckily, I was not physically harassed or humiliated. At the police station, the SHO was very polite. He asked me to sit on a bench and told me that I could not leave until I was released. Did this not amount to an arrest? He said that if I could provide a surety of a person not related to me, I could go home. At that time, the only person I could think of was my first daughter-in-law, Sujata Sridhar, and I was allowed to call her. She came, and as she is a Maharashtrian, the police were more than courteous. Perhaps that was good enough reason to assume that she was not related to me. After taking a surety undertaking from her, we were allowed to return home. By about 10 p.m., I returned home physically and mentally exhausted by the whole day of nightmarish experience. Before proceeding further, just see how fast the CBI had acted. FIR was filed on February 19, 1994, and in March the same year, the CBI was already at my home. The main thing to remember is that my name was not in the FIR, nor did it say that the then chairman was involved. There was no time even for an investigation. I was never called to explain anything for them to come to the conclusion that I was to be searched, my house was to be raided, etc. Much later, the same investigating officer told me that there was no intention at all to raise my house, but he was instructed to at least pay a visit to my house. Once he decided to visit, he wanted to go through the routine. Does this not establish the sinister motive of someone wanting wreak vengeance on me? Assuming that I had some role to play in the whole matter of irregularities committed by the chief of the branch in an overseas center, could not the bank have contacted me before lodging their FIR with the CBI, ascertained the facts from me, and then proceeded to do whatever they wanted to do? Why was this simple courtesy to a retired chief of the bank denied? Even before I could be found guilty of any crime, why would the bank treat me as an untouchable? A panchnama was prepared and two panchas who looked like drug addicts were asked to sign the document. The next day, the morning newspapers carried a report that my house was raided and incriminating documents were found and taken possession of. Until this date, they did not say those documents were and whether they returned them to me or destroyed them. When ultimately the CBI had filed a case against me or others, the so called incriminating documents did not form part of any evidence against me or any other accused officers. I was told that possession of alcoholic drinks without a license was a cognizable offense. Therefore, the police had filed a formal case. They did not bring the case before a magistrate within the stipulated time, and after 2 years, they deliberately brought the case before a judicial magistrate who dismissed the case as time barred. Police contended that the liquids in the bottles had evaporated. I am sure some individuals must have been blessing me for giving them a chance to taste really good spirits, and their blessings released me from this case unconditionally. The investigating officer did not tell me what the case against me was, nor did he discuss with me any aspect of it. No copy of the FIR was given to me. I was asked by him to go and meet him in the bank a day or two later. If you want to fathom my feelings at that time, please imagine yourselves in my position. With what face would I go to the same bank where, until this incident happened, I was real king, commanding respect from everyone, right from the lift man to the top man? When I went there, I had to wait outside the CBI officer's room, waiting for his permission to enter his room. It was the worst humiliation. I learned that there, after the investigation started, the scene of the crime happened to be one of the most attractive tourist spots, New York, in the world. The investigating team consisted of the investigating officer and his superior. I was not privy to the names of the members of the team and hence cannot recall their details. The bank was supposed to take due note of the visits of these officers from the CBI and extend them all courtesies and cooperation to ensure that their job was made easy and successful. It was rumored that the team visited the overseas center more than once, camped for 3 or 4 weeks, and did a thorough job of investigation. But what strikes me as odd was their supposed visits to the world famous gambling and nightclub town Las Vegas. However, I do not know whether this was true or not. The investigation took nearly 6.5 years to complete. During this long period, bosses in CBI kept on changing, but the investigating officer remained the same. Finally, the CBI came to the conclusion to file different cases on December 26, 2000. The first case was against G.C. Kathrani, K.N. Chaturvedi, San Singh Chatwal, Manju Zaveri, Bipin Chandra Sagar, and Frank M. Lagvidis. The second case was against K. N. Chaturvedi, R. Srinivasan, N. T. Bhavnani, San Singh Chatwal, and Harshad Shah. The third case was against G. C. Katrani, K. N. Chaturvedi, R. Srinivasan, and N. T. Bhavnani. The fourth case was against G. C. Katrani, K. N. Chaturvedi, and Mahesh Sadhwani. The first hearing took place on 11th April 2001. There was no progress thereafter for the next 5 years. As one of the accused, I was to be present on every occasion when the case came up before the court, but you should appreciate that the judicial system disposes of these cases very quickly. The cases are called out as per the list and sometimes as at the discretion of the presiding judicial authority. The names of the accused are shouted and the accused have to line up before the judge. If any one of the accused was not present, the case will not proceed further. Instead, the case gets adjourned to a future date, generally after 6 to 8 weeks later. Invariably, one of the accused was absent. The CBI claimed that they could not serve summons on GC Katrani. Did they investigate him when the CBI team was camping in the foreign land, and if so, what did they have to report, and why would it be so difficult to serve summons? These are questions beyond our jurisdiction. But the honorable judge repeatedly admonished the CBI for their inability to serve the summons on one who was considered the kingpin in the whole matter. The judge even asked CBI to produce before the court evidence of the efforts made by them to serve the summons and their reasons for not being able to do it successfully. At the next hearing, either the judge or the prosecutor or the CBI would forget the instructions of the judge from the previous date of hearing, and the matter would once again move on to another adjourned date. Before proceeding further with the narration, I want to share with readers my state of mind in those days. I was literally shattered. I felt that my whole world had crashed in, but for my wife it is probable that I would not have survived. My residence, which was at the crossing of very busy traffic junction, always had policemen in addition to traffic police. I never bothered about them until this incident took place. For many days after the CBI came to my residence and conducted their search, whenever I was returning home, I would, and if I found policemen around the building, I did not have the courage to enter my house. It took me a lot of effort to overcome that fear and become somewhat normal. While on this subject, I owe a deep debt of gratitude to one of the finest executives of our country. He was Suresh Nadkarni, who was chief of ICICI Bank, who later became CMD of IDBI and subsequently chairman of SEBI. Unfortunately, he died in harness. A few days after the news of the CBI's visit to my house became known to him, he telephoned me and asked if I would go and have lunch with him. He was by then the chairman of SEBI. I went with him, went and met him. He told me that he knew how upright an officer I was, and whatever has happened was due to some mischief by someone. He said that I should not shrink because of this, should not withdraw my normal activities, and that I should freely circulate among friends as before. To think of this gesture brings tears to my eyes, maybe tears to my eyes even at this distance of time. Let me say, Suresh, you were great. May you rest in peace. It was a routine drama. On every date of the hearing, Mr. Bhavnani and I were invariably present. Others were present at their convenience and by arrangement with their lawyers. Mr. Bhavnani's lawyer was very highly regarded, who told him on the very first day of his going through the case that it was not a fit case for him to be present at the court of every hearing as nothing was going to happen. He deputed one of his juniors to be present when the case was called out. My lawyer was sent to me by God, that is how I felt. He saw the case and told me in the very beginning that nothing would happen to me, but I would need to go through this exercise of being present in the court whenever the case came up. He was such a good friend that he used to be present even though on those days when, due to my other commitments, I could not be present. One of the main reasons that the case did not move forward was because the CBI claimed that they could not serve summons on the main accused Kathrani. Every time the court called out his name and he was not present, the judge would ask the CBI why they had not brought the main accused to the court. CBI replied that they were doing their best to serve the summons on him. On a few occasions, the court was unhappy at the reply given by CBI and directed that at the next hearing they should submit to the court a report on the efforts made by them to serve summons on Katrani. But at the next hearing, either the court or the CBI would not remember the earlier direction and the matter continued to remain ongoing. Do I need to explain why it was impossible for the CBI to summon Katrani? After all, he is a person of the Indian origin. The fact of the matter is he became a US citizen and became qualified as a CPA in USA. Do you think that it would be impossible to locate him and serve him the summons? Throughout the legal process, he would not make himself available. It may be worthwhile to recall that I wrote earlier about Katrani, who already had a green card, was sent to USA. This was very much in violation of the directions of the government of India that no one who held a green card could be given a posting to the USA. The bank was shrewd enough to circumvent by sending him out through Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, San Francisco, and ultimately New York. I have nothing against anyone who was responsible for this, and definitely much less against Katrani. Who could not have any grudge against me because he was the beneficiary of an extended stay in America during my time in the bank, although the decision in his regard was taken on the recommendations of various levels of officers. The fact remains that instead of being grateful to the bank, his conduct certainly betrayed the trust reposed in him. A quick recap. The bank lodges FIR in the third week of Friday, 1994. In March 1994, CBI was an uninvited guest at the house of the CMD of the bank who retired at the end of August 1991. The investigation goes on for more than 6.5 years, during which time the investigating team visits New York more than once and also goes to Las Vegas. The CBI decides to file four different cases against one FIR filed by the bank. These cases are filed in the Special CBI Court, Mumbai, on December 26, 2000, and the first hearing takes place on April 11, 2001. Thereafter, the case remains dormant for the next 5 years, while the central reason for his delay being that the CBI is unable to serve the summons on the main accused or nor give an explanation for their inability to do so. Early in 2006, 12 years after the FIR was lodged and with no progress at all in the case, application was filed in the case number 98 by 2000 by the accused for discharge. During the period the case remained in limbo. There were 106 adjournments, and we were present in the court at almost all hearings. Finally, on January 24, 2007, the judge ordered the discharge of all the accused. The court made some serious observations that were worth noting. But before I reproduce the learned observations of the Honorable Judge, let me try to place in proper perspective some broad points about the case so that you understand what it was all about, who did what, and what went wrong. That will place you in better position to appreciate the sufferings of the innocent accused people. When you read the judgment, it will reinforce your faith in the fairness of the judiciary and convince you that truth ultimately triumphs. You would have observed from earlier writing that the whole matter of irregularities was confined to only the New York branch of our beloved institution. The FIR was regarding 8 accounts, but the CBI, in their own wisdom, decided to split these 8 accounts into 4 different charge sheets and subsequently filed 4 different cases. Kathrani was the kingpin, and his writ ran in the branch. Allegations were made that he was the supreme leader, and no one had the guts to raise a voice of disagreement or dissent on any issue. This was broadly classified as a misuse of power and authority. He had created a wrong impression among the staff that he was very influential with higher authorities and that he could get anything done. It was only Katrani who would decide whether any application for loan could be considered or not. It was rather sad that none of the officers who worked allegedly under pressure from Katrani did not think it proper to report the state of affairs to head office in writing or orally, or even confide in anyone in head office unofficially. Once a decision was taken to entertain a loan application, basic procedure laid down for scrutinizing applications was more than a formality and was not strictly adhered to. Instances have been quoted where when any inconvenient points raised were overruled. When the question of collaterals was to be considered, the valuations had no relevance to realities. In some cases, they were far beyond the market value. Valuation certificates of such securities were obtained from fictitious or suspicious sources. The valuation reports were to be obtained from a MAI, Member of Assessors Institute. The joke was that instead the branch obtained such reports from MAI, made us instructed. The fundamental practice of undertaking an inspection before sanction of loan or immediately after was not followed. If this was done at all, it was perfunctory. Similarly, the practice of ensuring proper use of funds loaned was given a go by. While referring some matter to head office, a misleading statement was made that the matter was being referred to head office as advised. This was totally contrary to facts, as even when the head office advised the branch to examine a case, there was absolutely no direction not to examine the case on merits nor forward the same to head office if the case was found to be not feasible. Similarly, without any need, a case was sent to head office saying that the applicant was closely related to a minister of the Union Government of India. Even this was not mentioned in the proposal, but on a slip of unsigned, a sticker simply attached to the file. You could always remove it and put it on another file. The age old practice of obtaining a credit report from other banks was observed more in its breach. Instead, the branch merely said that the credit information obtained was satisfactory. Instead of basing the recommendations on the credit report obtained from other banks, head office was misled by painting a rosy picture of the borrower that was greatly exaggerated. A loan sanction to one borrower was released by another to another by simply changing the name of the borrower. Terms of sanction stipulated by head office were unilaterally altered without the permission of head office or informing the head office if there was a special need to do so. Creating a culture of fear among subordinates was common. The junior officers in the branch were in a foreign land and had no big experience to question the authority of the boss. To cover up shortcomings, minions were frequently made scapegoats. Not taking timely action or promptly answering the observations made by inspectors from not the local head office or the local monetary authorities was also common. Last but not least, Kathrani had overstayed in the USA even after the period for which he was posted had expired. He successfully managed to avoid the summons from the CBI. He also did not appear before the CBI investigating officer when called. Now, for some observations on a specific case investigated by CBI, Mr. Kathrani had given indiscriminate loans to one Mr. Sun Singh Chatwal, who was in the hospitality business, his family members, and his companies without observing the concept of group accounts. Subsequently, these loans became sticky and irrecoverable. One Mr. Harshad Shah from New York came forward to take over some of the restaurants belonging to Chatwal and run them profitably. At the insistence of the branch, he approached head office with his proposal to finance a takeover of the restaurants, but would ensure that all the accounts of the group would be first prepaid, and that he would bring in his equity of 25%. By this time, the original borrower, Mr. Chatwal, filed for bankruptcy under Chapter 11 in USA. Harshad Shah's proposal was sent to the New York branch to get further particulars and details, thoroughly investigate his claims, and submit a regular proposal to head office after due consideration at the branch level and at the level of the credit committee. The branch was specifically required to verify the ability of Harshad Shah to take over such sticky advances and turn them around and investigate his financial background and his experiences to run such business. In due course, the case came to head office duly recommended by the branch and their own committee of executives known as a credit committee. The processing of the case at the head office went through the normal course of several days of scrutiny of such cases. When the matter was put up to the sanctioning authority via head office committee, the loan was sanctioned subject to the conditions stipulated by the department. Those were very important conditions of sanction that were not observed at the branch level when the loan amount was released. If only those conditions were as stipulated were strictly adhered to, the advance would not have become a controversial subject. The whole need for CBI inquiry would not have arisen, nor would it have warranted a write up by the chairman nearly 25 years after he retired. Let me mention just one of the conditions prescribed. The person who had volunteered to take over his business should show his bona fides by depositing with the bank a certain sum of money before the branch could commence disbursing the rehabilitation loan. What the branch did was to create an escrow account and released a certain sum of money to a firm of lawyers who in turn remitted the money to the bank as though the new borrower was complying with the condition of sanction. This fact was also not reported to the head office, it was only found out during the investigation. It was not in my intention to ascribe these irregular actions at the branch level to any specific officer or any group of officers. I have no ill will against anyone. After all, they were my colleagues. All that I am asking you to decide is whether this in any way shows an act of conspiracy at head office by those who were accused in the case. I was one among them, perhaps the most important accused. My narration is to prove that I had the least to do anything in this case. If someone who was in the thick of all these happenings managed to evade or escape the long arm of the law, who am I to question or grumble about that? I did not want to point an accusing finger at anyone. The discharge applicants were heard by the court during October and November 2006. Finally, the court passed orders on January 24, 2007, discharging all the accused persons. This verdict came as a great relief from the ordeal they were enduring for so many years. I heaved a great sigh of relief. With this background in mind, let us consider the observations of the Honorable Judge. The relevant portions from the judgment are reproduced below for readers to appreciate the case from a better perspective. Harshad Shah, the principal borrower who had failed to repay the bank's loan, was not being prosecuted on the grounds that he is a US citizen. While disagreeing with the With this plea, the court remarked the proposition stated on behalf of the prosecution is not accurate. Section 3 of Indian Penal Code makes it very clear that even a foreigner can be prosecuted in Indian court for offence committed beyond India. At this stage, the judge made an oral observation not forming the part of the judgment and questioned the CBI why then were they after Quattrochi of in the Bofors case when he is a foreigner. On the executive director, Selvam, the court observed he also was not taking kindly to certain steps taken by the accused number two, who was the chairman and managing director, and it happens that even in case of accused number three, Mr. Bhavnani, Mr. Selvam was not quite favorably disposed. Just before retirement of the said accused, he applied for leave which was due to him and which I think is the usual phenomena in so far employees are concerned. Mr. Selvam made attempts to block even the grant of leave to the said accused. On Katrani, the judge observed, I am unable to comprehend as to why he should not have been accused in this matter. If the prosecution wanted to support its conspiracy theory by recourse to some kind of a chain extending to past, then the array of the parties should have been consistent with the case of the prosecution. The judge continued, it is undoubtedly true that the best one would hope in the banking business is both safety of amount lent and safety measures for its recovery. In the present day of commercial world, the banks have to break new grounds which necessitate dynamism of action in actual practice and transactions. Now different highly placed personnel with undoubted felicity and expertise in the commercial field are fully entitled to their own approach and point of view. Sometimes the conflict does arise, which in fact would also be welcomed because some time better could emerge from the friction. But at the end of the day, the final authority is bound to be one person, which in this case happened to be the accused number two. Sometimes the move may succeed and sometimes it may bomb. But when the court has to evaluate the material, the court has to bear in mind that there is a marked distinction between a failed judgment and an intentional act which, with the required means, mens rea. As far as Harsha Chai is concerned, Mr. Selvam mentioned that any further dealing with him is not free from worries. Now, the banks do lend money, and I presume that every lending must bring its train worries as occupational hazards, and that can be no grounds to start doubting the bona fides of all except one gentleman. It is indisputable that it was sanctioned, and but having not been availed of it, in layman's language, lapsed, and it was proposed to be revalidated on 13/3/1991 and ultimately revalidated on 3/6/1991 by then accused number 3 had admittedly retired. One of the chief planks of the contentions of the learned advocate of the accused number 3 was that taking the case of the prosecution as it is, once the usual actual disbursement did not materialize during the service span of the accused, and the said accused can never be held to a party to the alleged conspiracy. The essence of their prosecution is that it is a case of conspiracy and therefore the retirement of the accused number 3 would be immaterial. I am afraid the prosecution would come to a grief as far as this aspect of the matter is concerned, and then theories and academics need not detain the court when it is nobody's case that the persons unknown to one another were conspiring to achieve the sinister object. As I read, they make a very clear, even without the need to await anything at the trial, that the conduct of none of the applicants before me could be assailed as lacking in bona fides, but I must repeat that no offence is committed by merely holding a different viewpoint unless the guilty intent was writ on the on the record, at least to the extent of raising grave suspicion. The upshot is that the present acts are such that where there is not sufficient material to frame charge against any of the applicants. All of them have to be discharged, inasmuch as these are the only four accused in this matter. As essential fallout would be that their case would stand concluded. If it be so, so be it. The points are found accordingly and the order follows. Investigation by CBI started in February 1994. The case was filed in December 2001, and the final order discharging the accused persons were made in January 2007. This entire delay was due to the CBI adopting delaying tactics. At no time did any of the accused persons ask for any adjournment of the case. Thus, our trial in the case of 1998 by 2000 came to a happy end for all of the accused. Unfortunately for us, immediately thereafter, the honorable judge who passed the above orders was promoted and transferred out of the court. Maybe the combined gratitude and best wishes from all of us worked. If only he had continued our other case, which was much simpler and less complicated, would have also been decided quickly because the judge had gone through the case and had deep insight. What to do? Our ordeal of going to court again and again continued for a few more years. Then started the other remaining case of 99 by 2000, and it followed the same pattern. Every few weeks there would be a new judge. The court would say that the sitting judge had not been notified, which in court parlance means that he was not officially notified that he could handle CBI cases, and unless this is done, he has no powers to even look at the accused. He would sit on the podium. A court clerk would call out the case number and read out the names of the accused, and one by one we would move to one side of the court and stand there in a row like students lined up in a physical training class. Then quietly the name of the accused who was not present would be noted and the case adjourned for a later date. Generally, after about 6 weeks, we the blessed souls would walk out and go to a nearby coffee shop and have a cup of tea or coffee and part company until we were scheduled to meet again. In this case, also, all the accused had filed application for discharge 2005 to 2006. These applications were heard in May 2008. On January 25, 2008, the discharge applications were rejected by the court. Case number 99 by 2000 was simple and was not as complicated as the case number 98 by 2000. If only the presiding judge had time to read and understand the case. Let me digress a bit. At the chain at the bank, change was taking place at the level of the chief executive, chairman and managing director, and also the chief vigilance officer. Two such CVOs were people who knew how things happen in banks and took kindly to the accused in these cases. I was introduced to one of them by a friend who had nothing to do with the banking. I went and met him and asked him if there was any hope of these cases ending soon. He said that he would go through the cases and would let me know. After some time, he informed me that according to him, the cases against me and the general manager in charge of foreign branches would not stand judicial scrutiny and that the filing of the cases was flawed from the start. He was able to talk to the CMD at that time, who came from another bank. Luckily for us, the CMD had himself passed through some CBI investigation earlier but could manage to get out of that situation, possibly because he was still in service. It is likely that he could understand our sufferings, and so that, at the request of the CVO, he wrote a well reasoned letter to CBI requesting them to drop the case against me and the general manager. There was no response from CBI. At a later date, a new CVO came to the bank. He had a record of helping many unfortunate bankers from such predicaments as the one we found ourselves in. He was a bold and practical person. He wrote a detailed letter to the Chief Vigilance Commissioner of New Delhi under those jurisdictions under whose jurisdiction CVOs worked and urged him to intervene and ask CBI to drop these cases. I learned that the CVC did intervene and advised the CBI accordingly, but once again there was no response. By that time, BOI had the first time a CMD who rose from the ranks of our own bank. The CVO showed him his letter to CVC and convinced him that he too should write to CBI urging them to drop the cases. Our CMD fully agreed with the CVO and sent a letter to the CBI. I was able to get copies of these letters unofficially, which I shared with my comrades in distress. They were very happy and imagined that our future was not going to be too bleak. But as usual, nothing happened. Let me express my sincere thanks to these CVOs who subsequently rose to become CMDs of other banks, as well as our thanks to CMDs who also wrote those letters. The public prosecutor who was handling the case for CBI was a learned man, and the court treated him with respect. As the cases were not progressing and there was no sign of them being closed, one day I met him outside the court and asked him our fate. He simply replied, "I do not know how you got into this case. There is no case against you." He meant myself and the GM at all. Thereafter, on December 8, 2008, on behalf of CBI, he asked for separating Katrani from the case so that there could be some progress. The court granted this. We imagined that this would pave the way for the case to move forward, as all the other accused were always present whenever the case came up before the court. Predictably, nothing like that happened. We used to attend courts on the dates fixed and then return home after taking note of the date to which the case had been adjourned. On March 17, 2011, charges against the accused persons were framed. To those who are lucky not to know what this means, framing of the charges is the first step to commence the trial. Each of the accused is officially told by the court what the charges against him are. The accused has an option to either accept the charges and plead guilty or refuse to accept the charges and say that he would like to contest the case. We naturally did not accept the charges. Thereafter, the court takes its own time to hand over the charge sheet to each of the accused. Here, I need to explain that under the service rules, a case can be filed by the bank against any officer or only when sanction to do so is obtained from the competent authority. A competent authority is one who is the appointing authority. For instance, in the case of all the accused except me, the competent authority was the general manager. In my case, the appointing authority was the government of India, and I was supposed to be holding the office at the pleasure of the President of India. It transpired that no proper sanction was obtained to prosecute me. When this was challenged by my lawyer, the court did not appreciate the point of view on some other technical ground and rejected our claim. In the case of the other accused, the concerned authority was one general manager. In this case, it happened to be Mr. V.H. Ramakrishnan. He was the first witness to be examined and was subjected to searching questions whether he had applied his mind before granting sanction, whether all the facts of the case were placed before him, and whether he was influenced by anyone, etc., etc. VHR stood his ground well and very clearly said that, based on the facts brought before him, he took an independent decision to grant the sanction. His evidence was recorded on December 2, 2011. When the charge sheets were examined by our lawyers, it was found that some important documents were cited as crucial evidence were not found. In fact, they were missing. From January to June 2012, CBI tried to sort out this matter, but the original documents were not found. From July 17, 2012 to October 8, 2012, CBI had summoned only 6 witnesses for recording their evidence. In the charge sheet, nearly 30 witnesses were supposed to have given evidence to the CBI during the investigations. CBI follows a procedure of recording of evidence from witnesses. They do not get it signed by the witness. The veracity of such statements said to have been made by the witnesses before the investigating officer is always questionable because they are not accepted by the witnesses or authenticated. This system is more to build up a case and file a charge sheet. As stated earlier, only the following 6 persons were summoned and their evidence recorded in the court: S. or Shri V.H. Ramakrishnan, Jagdish Pai, Babu Venkatachalam, T.R. Madhavan, G.J. Dhond, and K.L. Bansal, the investigating officer. On October 12, 2012, the court heard arguments by the public prosecutor and the defense counsels. The public prosecutor admitted before the court that he had no strong case to submit. My lawyers laid before the court how I was wrongly accused in this case and there was no case at all against me. He also complimented the public prosecutor for openly admitting before the court that there was no case against all the accused. He said that to make such statement it certainly calls for high degree of honesty and integrity on the part of the public prosecutor. Lawyers of the other accused people also reiterated the innocence of their clients and said that their clients have been made to undergo a long period of suffering for no fault of theirs. Judgment was delivered on October 22, 2012, and all the 3 accused were acquitted. The judgment, which ran to 15 pages, may not be of much interest to readers, but I would attempt to quote below some observations made by the Honorable Judge. First, In the cross-examination of this witness, Hale Bansal, the investigating officer of CBI, admitted that he has not produced the guidelines of the bank. He is not aware whether the loans were repaid or not. It was his primary duty to verify whether the loan under investigation was repaid or not. Second, from the oral and documentary evidences produced before the court, it proves that prosecution miserably failed to prove the case against all the accused. Third, in one case, CBI did not prosecute the borrower who was said to have strong political connections. It was admitted that CBI allowed the accused to go scot-free. Fourth, LRD, advocate of accused number 2, points out that no case was made against accused number 2. No witness deposed about the lost cost to the bank. Record does not speak about dishonest loss or dishonest gain. Loan policy documents were not produced on record. Other members of the credit committee are not accused in this case. The persons who originated the proposals are also not made accused. Fifth, contention of the LRD advocate for accused number 3, the trial of accused number 1 is separated. The charge is about sanction of loan. The loan is repaid. Accused number 3 was not present in any meeting. None of the witnesses deposed against accused number 3. There is no sanction for prosecution against the accused number 3. 6. It is the contention of the LRD advocate for accused number 4 that prosecution miserably failed to prove the case against accused number 4. No evidence is adduced against accused number 4. Seventh, from the evidence of this witness, Jagdish Pai, it does reveal as what role the accused have played while sanctioning the loan as per the charge leveled against him. This witness stated that the note on EXH 68 and 69 put up by him, which is EXH 70, it was initiated by separated accused number 1 and accused number 2, PW 4 TR Madhavan, stated that he was not concerned with the proposal of PW 5 Babu Venkitchalam, stated that he was a member of credit committee and he had no occasion to deal with the two proposals attributed to him. PW6 KL Bansal, the investigating officer, stated that during the investigation he found that there are some irregularities while recommending the sanctioning the loan and in the disbursement of loan. One loan was sanctioned by the accused separated from the case. 8th, PW1, who is the sanctioning authority, has accorded sanction against separated accused number 1 and accused number 2. From the oral and documentary evidence produced before the court, it proves that prosecution failed miserably to prove the case against all accused. Though accused number 2 was member of credit committee and he has recommended the loan, but prosecution has not proved his conspiracy with the borrower. Another accused being a member of credit committee, he cannot be held alone responsible for the final decision taken by the credit committee. From the evidence on record, the charged offences against accused are not proved. Hence, I proceed to pass the following order. Accused number 2, K. N. Chaturvedi, and accused number 3, R. Srinivasan, and accused number 4, N. T. Bhavnani, are hereby acquitted by the offences punishable under Section 120B and 409 of Indian Penal Code under Section 13(2) RW 13(1)D of Prevention of Corruption Act, and they are at liberty. The end. In retrospect, I hope these memoirs provide some context on my life and the lives of people close to me. I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunities that have come my way. Sitting here in my flat in Bombay in December 2017, it is hard to imagine that home in Vembanur, Tamil Nadu, all those years ago where it began. More than anything, I feel proud of the people I have had the pleasure of knowing through these years, especially my wife, sons, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren, including my grandson-in-law and granddaughter-in-law. I have tried to be as accurate as I can in recounting these memories. Of course, I have no doubt that some errors and omissions may have crept in despite my best attempts. If so, those errors are all solely mine. I must place on record that this book owes its coming into existence to my three sons and particularly to Shrikant, who insisted on my completing it. Similarly, the encouragement and guidance given to me by the admin members of the Facebook page Galaxy of BOI Stars and all the members of that group. I will be failing in my duty if I do not acknowledge the help and support extended to me by Mr. Chinmay Das, a professional colleague of mine in Bank of India at West Bengal, in bringing out these writings in a book form. Every step I took in life thus far until I exist is the gift of God. Thank you very much for your patience. Please like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.